Hi guys, Ree here. Welcome back to the podcast, Real Talk with Ree. How has your week been? So this week marks 4 years since we moved into what I'm going to have to stop calling our new house. It really does not seem like 4 years since all that happened. Just to give you some context, we moved in the height of the pandemic. So I will touch on that story briefly in case you're not familiar with the whole vlog renovation series from my main channel. So I'm going to fill you in on our little journey of how we came to live in the house we now call home. And I've had a whole load of questions sent in about our house, about choices we made, plans for the future. So I've amalgamated those because a lot of the questions were quite similar into just the most frequently asked questions, and we're going to have a little chat about all things house, home, organisation. So get comfy, or if you've got your earpods in, you're listening to me while you're having a little walk, or if you're watching on YouTube, hi. But let's have a little homely chat. So just kind of rewinding back to 2019 when we bought this property. My husband, who is luckily a builder, so he's luckily a builder, which is probably why we took on such a dramatic renovation, I suppose. I have been, very involved in organising the internal parts of the house, but he very much looked after everything structurally. So it was the end of November, I believe it was the last day of November 2019 where we completed on the property. And we'd only been to view it with furniture in it. And then we had the keys, and I think I'd picked the children up from school and I met my husband here. And obviously things look really different when things have been empty, don't they? Things look really, really different. And it didn't look like we knew there was a lot to do, but it didn't look that dramatic when it was furnished. And then suddenly, with no furniture in it at all, suddenly it was just really evident just how much there was to do. Like in The Lion King, where they're like, everything the light touches. Well, that's how much needed doing. Actually, it turned out that, I don't think this was a shock. I think he knew, but actually seeing it and being faced with it, he looks back and says that if he'd had the opportunity on that point to give the keys back and just go, no, I'm not doing this, he would have done. Obviously, we'd completed. The house was ours. That was not an option. So we looked around the house and I was like, come on, you can do this. It needed totally stripping. And he had a few days, bless him, of feeling the overwhelm and not really knowing where to begin. So I was like, darling, this is kind of your bit. I can't help you with this. You just need to get on with it. So in all fairness then, he cracked on with it. He worked really hard. And I think it was Boxing Day, we went to choose the kitchen. And if you watch the renovation vlog series, which is over on my main Mummy of Four channel, there is a playlist, which I will link down below. So you can watch the whole thing if you like kind of renovation-y stuff. And the kids look so little in it because obviously it was over 4 years ago. So we were I was coming back more than once a week, but I was coming back once a week with my camera to film updates, and things were really changing. And it was really coming together around March of 2020. Now, what else is happening March of 2020? So we're just about getting ready to be able to move. And then lockdown happened. And I don't know about how you felt about it at the time, and it's not necessarily how I feel about it now, but just reflecting on how I felt at the time, it all felt very scary. It felt like the plague, the end of the world. It was a very scary time. And we honestly were kind of, I think I was, if I'm honest now, I was frightened that one of us was going to end up on a ventilator somewhere in a field hospital. I didn't know where they were going to be, and I was terrified. That's not what happened. We all got through it. In fact, we all had COVID, and we all, nobody needed hospitalization. So with hindsight, that fear was disproportionate for our family. But I'm just reflecting how I felt at the time. So we definitely didn't, and I also am a real rule follower, as in I guess people pleaser rather than rule follower, but people pleaser in that I just really didn't want to get in trouble. So he said, like, well, what are the rules about moving? So we looked into it, and you could move into a property that was already empty. So you could, if a property was empty, you were allowed to move. That was something you were allowed to do. And obviously this one was empty. It was only us that'd been in it, and even we hadn't been over here for some time because of the rules, and we were only supposed to be going for emergency, taking essential supplies or whatever, 2 people. So we looked into it. We were allowed to move, and it seemed a sensible thing to do for a few reasons. So my husband wasn't working, so he could actually have some spare time to help me unpack, maybe put up pictures or, just little faffy bits, not full on building work, but faffy bits that would need doing inevitably after we moved in, and plumbing and washing machines and all that kind of stuff. So it seemed like a sensible time to do it because he wasn't working, so we could utilise that time to get the house straight. But also at the time, house sales were totally on stop. No one could view anything, but we knew that the first things we were going to open up were viewings of empty properties. And it turns out when the market did open up, gosh, it feels like such a long time ago in such another world, doesn't it? But when the market did open up, you could only view properties, I believe, that had been totally unoccupied for 3 days. So I think you could view an empty property that had been empty for 3 days, and I think the next viewer could come 3 days later or something, which, wow, it seems a lot now, doesn't it? But at the time, this was the way the world was. So we decided to look into removal companies, but I was just like, look, I don't want people touching our stuff and bringing germs into the house. I don't want people in the house. And I was just terrified of getting this, the dreaded C word at the time. So he phoned up a removal company for a quote, and he said, I've booked them for tomorrow at midday. I said, it's 8 o'clock. The children have already gone to bed. Are you joking? He's like, no, we'll just move the essentials, because he knew that we didn't want people going into the house. So it was fridge, freezer, which was massive. It was washing machine, tumble dryer, the children's beds, because I think we'd had a new bed. So the children's beds that were too big to go in our vehicles. And I think a little purple sofa that we had in the playroom in the old house, because we were leaving the 3-piece suite in the old house so that the house could be dressed and it could look lived in, even though there was no one there. Because I've always believed that actually the best way to sell a house is so people can imagine themselves living in it. So it's a dressed home, but equally it's not so personal. They can't imagine placing themselves in it. So a very neutral dressed home without lots of family pictures and things. So all that was taken out. Anyway, we moved the stuff. We got all the removal company left all the stuff outside on the drive. And we had my husband and my eldest wiping it all before we could bring it into the house. It's so funny. And then everything came in, we got sorted. And then over the course of, the next few months, I was homeschooling the children, trying to work from home, whatever. And then I think September, we started the extension, which is now our dining room. That was my husband. And I was like, oh, by the way, this is where I want to have Christmas dinner, because until we had the extension, I couldn't order a new sofa. Well, I could order it, I couldn't have it delivered. So until we had the extension, we couldn't order sofas. So we were just sitting on 1 2-seater purple sofas, all we had in the living room, plus the dining table and chairs, which didn't really fit because they were supposed to go in the dining room that wasn't built yet. So it was very squashed up until that point where the extension was going to be finished. And then the extension, in all fairness to him, in spite of the fact he had real difficulties getting materials and things, we were in just before Christmas, just in time for me to actually get COVID and lie on the sofa I just bought, actually. So that was our 2020. And that was the year we moved into the house. And since then, we've done lots of tweaks and things. There is a full house tour, which I will link below over on my main Mummy of 4 UK channel if you want to go and check that out and sort of see what I'm talking about. But today we're going to talk about my favourite things about the house. We're going to talk about what we would have done differently, and we're going to talk about what we've got coming up next in our kind of projects and things. Now, for me, I'm very much going to talk about a lot of the organisation-y stuff that works well in the house, as well as the structural stuff. My husband was very much, when we were moving in, like, oh, don't bother me with what's going into the house. Don't bother me with what's going into the cupboards. Don't bother me with furniture or whatever. That can be dealt with afterwards. I just need to think about structural stuff. And I said, that's all very well. And the structural stuff absolutely 100% matters. It matters that the house has a really good foundation, that the walls are right, the doors are right. The architrave, I think that just means the door surround. I don't know, I keep saying architrave. I still don't really know what it means. I think it means the bit around the door. But yes, it means that all that stuff is right, and it's clean and it's working and it's all lined up properly. He's a carpenter primarily, so he wants everything to look perfect, which is great. But ultimately, it's the organisation solutions that will mean that the house feels easy to keep clean, easy to keep tidy and habitable, or chaotic, messy and difficult. So a lot of the things I'm going to talk about are very much organisation based. So one of my favourite things about this house, and this is sort of nothing to do with the house really, but it really forced me to have a really massive sift through and declutter. So although we officially moved house on that day in April 2020, so lockdown happened in March and we moved in April. Although the big things were moved then, the majority of our stuff was still in the old house. So the property wasn't able to go on the market yet. It gave me that window, which normally people wouldn't get, to really only bring things over here that actually belonged here and were going to live here, and to filter other things to be sold, donated, recycled, whatever. And having that opportunity, as much as it felt like such a mammoth task at the time, was so worthwhile. But the thing is, you don't have to wait until you're moving house to do this big declutter. You don't have to wait in order to do this. You could just do this in the home you live in and transform it. You can absolutely transform the home you live in by rearranging things, decluttering things, making your existing space more pleasant, which is what I will continue to do in this house, because ultimately it was 4 years ago I had that massive sort and declutter to move in. But when you've got children, and even Marie Kondo apparently agrees with this now. So Marie Kondo, is it The Magical Art of Tidying Up? She had the book and the Netflix show, and she very much had this philosophy of decluttering as a one and done kind of thing. And apparently even she changed her tune after having children, realizing that children through different stages of their lives bring in different things. They are having new things, they're growing out of things, and it's very much turns into a process you have to do on a cycle. So decluttering is something, it's not something I enjoy the process of, but I absolutely live for the results. I live for them. And when you are in the process of decluttering and you're in the mindset of decluttering, it also makes you a little bit more mindful about what you purchase and bring into the home, thinking, is this just going to be something I'm going to have to declutter in the future? And is that going to be a bit of a pain for me? So doing that massive declutter moving in, and just really having the opportunity to organise the house in a way that makes it easier to live in, easier to keep tidy and clean. Because ultimately, if you're not familiar, all the videos are on my main channel. But our old house was much bigger than this place. So this place has 4 bedrooms upstairs, and then downstairs it has the room I'm sitting in at the moment, which is my office, and then the other side of the Calix unit to my right is my laundry area. So it's one room, but it's divided into 2 rooms. There is the living room, which through to an open plan kitchen, through to another arch to an open plan dining room. And then there is the other room, which when our eldest is home, it's his bedroom, and the rest of the time it's the children's playroom, and it just kind of converts back and forth. And there is 1 bathroom upstairs, and there is a bathroom with a shower in it downstairs. Now, by contrast, our older house had a much larger entranceway. My husband actually built that house from scratch. It had a larger playroom, a larger living room, maybe about a similar size living room, a much larger kitchen with a dining area in it, and 4 bedrooms on the first floor, or I guess the second floor if you're in America, because we say ground floor, first floor, second floor, don't we? And in America you do first floor, second floor. But I've got to say the American way makes more sense, but we're in the UK, so on the first floor it had 4 bedrooms, and then it had an additional 2 bedrooms on the second floor. So obviously we were going from a larger property, but you would have thought with more space the old house would have been easy to keep clean and tidy, but ultimately I put so many good storage solutions in place. I really thought about how are we going to store things, how are we going to organise things, which systems are we going to put in place to make this easier, that this smaller house is easier to keep clean and tidy and seemingly clutter-free. I'm not saying there's no clutter, it's just perhaps stored a bit better, but seemingly clutter-free than that house was, because the systems we have in place just work so much better. So that big declutter was massive, and I'm going to go through a few of the things that have helped with the organisation. I've got a few other points I wanted to kind of cover with the other favourite things about this house. So structurally, it was made neat, tidy and neutral. So the walls are all not white, but a certain very, very pale shade of grey. and it all looks very neutral. It all looks very blank canvas. So we can change things up quite easily with different cushions, bedding, sofas, whatever. All of the doors all now match. He's just done a really nice job of, I guess, making it a bit more like a new build, a bit more kind of uniformed and neat and tidy throughout. So that I'm massively grateful for my husband doing that. So that really, really helps. Most of the house has got this very pale grey and then a slightly darker grey, white and pale pink theme throughout. And I love that. It just kind of flows nicely and I love the colour scheme and it makes me happy. Ultimately, we can change the pink. Most of the pink is just through cushions and things. So if we want to change up the colours, we can quite easily. So that's quite nice. And one of the other favourite things, which you're not going to be able to see if you're listening to the podcast, but behind me I have this little cocktail sofa. We've got those in a few of the rooms. And I love them. I absolutely love them. They're really great. I think they were from Homebase. They were, I can't remember the exact amount, but about 110, 130 pounds each. They're great. Like little accent sofas. Love, love, love those. I do love the big sofa that we bought from Next in the lounge, but I don't know if I made the right choice then. We'll get to that in a second. So, storage solutions that have absolutely changed the flipping game in this house. So, the first one is the built-in wardrobe. So my husband built built-in wardrobes in each of the bedrooms and including the downstairs one that's sometimes playroom, sometimes our eldest's bedroom. And ultimately we recycled Kallax units. So Kallax, if you're not watching, if you're listening, are kind of square cube shelves from IKEA. And people on the internet have said when watching house tours previously, like, really, you got too much Kallax. But ultimately it stores so much stuff. This is not the biggest of houses for the amount of people that live in it. And I think I get this comment a lot when I get people watching from America. They can't believe how small our homes are in the UK compared to the American homes. And the bedrooms in this house especially, because again, I've had comments from people going, oh, I wish the bedrooms were bigger. I wish the bedrooms were bigger too, but this is what we've got. But by building these built-in wardrobes, which ultimately take up a fair amount of space, but they swallow so much. And you can have like smaller, cuter wardrobes, but they're not going to hold as much stuff. And then where's the rest of the stuff going to go? It's going to just be all over the place. In the last house, we had IKEA wardrobes again with the Pax range, which were great. But ultimately, I ended up stuffing stuff on top of the wardrobes because it was dead space and I needed to utilise the space to store. I'd store like off-season clothes or blankets or bedding or whatever in bags on top. And it looked a little bit scruffy. So now by having these floor to ceiling built-in wardrobes with the sliding doors, they've got mirrors in them to kind of create the illusion of space, bring a bit more light. And they just hide so much stuff. They hide like a multitude of sins. So if you're thinking about storage solutions for a smaller room, have a thinking about getting a carpenter locally to build a structure of a built-in wardrobe, and then you can piece together the inside from whatever you want, IKEA bits, just loose rails, whatever. Get that built, and then you've got all that space to maximize right up to the ceiling, and you can close the door on it and hide all of the stuff, which is what we want to be doing. We had understairs storage. That was actually gifted to me. My husband could have done that himself, being that he's a carpenter, but we went with this company because it was just already like pre-cut and done and things, and it would have taken him so long to calculate the exact measurements, whereas if you go to a specialist company that just does under the stairs, because obviously it's a really funny shape, isn't it? It's all angled and things, and they put in all the drawers and things, and it was such a game changer. So I definitely recommend going to an expert that specializes in doing something like that when it's quite specific. Like, so the company that, like I said, it was technically like gifted, whatever, was called Clever Closets. And they were great. They were absolutely fantastic. And that was just dead space under the stairs. It was just covered in shoes and you could see all the junk. And now it is neat and tidy. It's got 3 triangle shaped drawers and a big coat cupboard. It swallows so much junk. It's so great. The other thing in the hall is we have a school bag station, which I had a version of in the last house and we've got in this house. Game changer. So school bags just ultimately get either thrown on the floor in the hall or taken up to the bedroom, and then they're like, where's my school bag? And they're just running up and downstairs looking for things. So the school bag station is by the front door. Each child has a box. Again, it's a Kallax box. They've got one of the pull-out boxes, which I think are called Drona boxes. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but the canvas boxes that slot into the Kallax. And it's just like a square. And they put their school bag in there, but not just their school bag, but maybe their PE kit that goes on a certain day, or maybe their forest school kit, or some folder they've got to take, or whatever. It just all gets put in there, and They know where to find things. It clears up so much space in the hall. So there's probably more attractive furniture we could have in the hall, or maybe the space would be lovely. And maybe if you don't have small kids, then that would work. But when you have, and they all have school bags, and the amount of stuff that goes back and forth, school, parents, you will understand this. It's so much stuff, isn't it? It's so much stuff. And having the school bag station by the front door has been a game changer. My laundry system, again, game changer. Again, Calix has been involved. We had a laundry system in the old house, which we implemented within the last couple of years of living there. Ultimately, I used to just take up all of the clean, dry washing to my bedroom. It would accumulate there until I went to sort it, and it would just stack up and drive me insane. So we implemented the laundry system so things would come out of the dryer and be sorted into a box. Each family member had a box with their name on it, and then when they get old enough, they just get given the box and say, here, put away your stuff. And when they're little, they have some help doing it. But ultimately, yeah, that's been a game changer, because all of the laundry mess is, again, hidden away. There are sliding doors, covers it all, keeps it neat and tidy. But if you can have that system where things come out of your dryer or in from the line wherever it's been dried and put in the box for each person and then just given to that person to put away, it's encouraging your children to be independent. It is keeping everything contained. It's a system, so we're not having to reinvent the wheel all the time, trying to think of how to keep our homes tidy. It's a game changer. So the other thing I absolutely love is a hidden bin in the kitchen and having everything behind a door. I think that's the key, is whatever you can put behind a door, do it. So we've got the bin is behind a kitchen door. It just looks like a kitchen cabinet till you pull it out. There's a bin in there. My husband's got a coffee cupboard with a coffee machine inside. So rather having yet another appliance on the kitchen surfaces, which I attempt to keep clear, then it's behind a door. All our canisters and things are put into cupboards, although I have got canisters that, that wouldn't be unattractive if they were left out. In the last house, we had a lot more kitchen space, and I had canisters out for tea and coffee and sugar, and I had some pretty bottle with oil in it and stuff, which ultimately was just more for me to dust and clean, really, and more to clutter up the surfaces. The countertops were bigger, so it didn't matter so much. With a microwave on the countertop in the last house, it didn't matter so much. But ultimately, clutter attracts clutter. So more stuff you've got out, the more stuff people are likely to be like, oh, I'll just add this to it. If it's a totally clear surface and something gets plonked on it, it's like, this clearly does not belong here. Let's move it. Perhaps people are slightly less likely to dump things on a clear surface rather than just add to a cluttered surface. So very much I wanted in this house to keep everything off the surfaces wherever possible. It is easier to just wipe a surface. That involves cleaning with a swipe rather than wiping and cleaning every individual little ornament-esque thing that you have out. So in this house, when we were designing the kitchen, we went for a built-in microwave so that is all off the countertop. It's literally what's keeping me from having an air fryer, because I'm like, do I want it on the countertop? Is that what I want? I don't know. Am I the last person in the UK not to have an air fryer? Possibly. So some things that we would do differently. One of the big mistakes we made was going for white grout. Don't go for white grout on the floors, people. It is almost impossible to keep clean, no matter how much you scrub it. And then it always looks like it's grey. And then perhaps if you'd just gone for grey in the first place, it would all look uniformed. I'm not saying don't clean your floors. Absolutely clean your floors. But even if you're scrubbing them, it's almost impossible to keep white grout clean. So personally, I would avoid it at all costs in the future. My husband did re-grout the white grout in the kitchen when the extension went on, so the tiling had to be extended, and it's been a game changer. It's so much better. Second mistake I made was I was like, oh, I don't want spotlights in the lounge. So we went for LED spotlights all through the downstairs, but I didn't want them in the lounge because I was like, no, we want off-center, mood chill lighting in the lounge, which after the children have gone to bed, we do. I think that having very bright light just before you go to bed disturbs your sleep, and you want dimmer lighting. However, I had forgotten that at 4 p.m. in the UK in the winter, it is dark, and we do not want mood lighting at 4 p.m. in the UK when the children are trying to play. We want bright lighting so we can pretend it's daylight and we can pretend it's not dark and miserable. So my poor husband did have to put this, was it maybe a year or two ago? I was like, I made a mistake and I changed my mind, and I need you to retrofit some spotlights in what was our eldest's bedroom, is now also the playroom, and in the lounge. So he did do that without too much complaining, in all fairness to him. So yay for that. Obviously, in an ideal world, if I could be picky, I would love to have my office and the laundry separate, so I could have the washing machine running while I'm working without interfering. So that way when I'm filming, I don't have to be like, oh, has the washing machine finished before I can film? Things like that. In an ideal world, but This is just kind of me being picky. And yes, obviously in an ideal world, it would be lovely if the children's bedrooms were a little bit bigger. But I think the house ultimately works quite well. We chose it for the location, for a number of reasons. And in fact, initially when it came on the market, we didn't want to look at it. And it was on the market for a while and we didn't want to look at it. And it was only when we kind of thought, well, actually, what can we turn it into, that we kind of got excited about it. The other thing that I perhaps would change, we have a TV in our bedroom, which we never turn on because ultimately we have over the years been at bad habits of watching TV in bed. And then I think if you watch TV in bed, then ultimately impacts your sleep. So I found that by keeping like TV and screens and things for downstairs and then just going upstairs to sleep means I sleep better. And I would like to get rid of the TV in the bedroom because ultimately it's just gathering dust. However, my husband is not keen because it is there. So yeah, I guess in an ideal world, I'd just have that to clear space. And I don't know if I made the right choice about the sofas. I was torn between a corner sofa, which we have, and separate sofas so that we could reconfigure the room easily. And I don't know, I think I probably should have gone for separate sofas. If you watch that house tour, the room has been so many different configurations. I love the way it is now, unless we're watching TV. In that case, we're a little bit side on for it. So it's not perfect, but I don't know. If we'd had separate sofas, I think ultimately that would have been the right choice. I'm so indecisive. It got to the stage where I was like, I've just got to make a choice, otherwise I'm never going to order anything. But ultimately, yes, I love the corner sofa, but it doesn't give much flexibility or many options for swapping things around. So if you're thinking about, do I want a massive corner sofa or do I want separate sofas and your space isn't massive, maybe consider the separates if you want more flexibility. So what's next? Possibly rearrange the lounge again, which would mean moving the TV, which would mean redecorating the wallpaper, which would mean also moving the radiator. So don't know if we're going to do that or if it would even be any better off. I don't know. So that's a possibility. My husband is talking about potentially putting a small extension in the side of the house off the laundry room. I'm not sure what for extra, I don't know, extra living space, I suppose. I mean, I'm never going to say no to more space when we've got small children who take up all the space. They are wonderful, wonderful humans. But gosh, they do take up a lot of space. So maybe that would be helpful. And then there is also talk of potentially extending William's bedroom over the stairs to create more storage because we've got a lot of dead space at the top of our stairs. It's not like a feature staircase or anything. There's just a lot of empty space. So that is also a possibility. So I guess you're going to have to watch this space to see what we end up doing. But I will definitely be vlogging it on my main Mummy of Four channel. So thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Real Talk with Ree. You can catch early release episodes over on my Patreon, which is all linked below. Check out my main channel, Mummy of Four, my Disney channel, Mummy of Four Does Disney. And I shall see you guys next week for another episode. Bye.